Perrault on the Harbor One hotline. Stevie, good morning. How giddy were you last night?
To say I was giddy would be the understatement of the century. Here's the deal, though. When the news was about to happen, or hypothetically about to happen, it seemed like it wasn't because the union was going to vote 8-0 against it, which they did, the executive board. The second Heyman tweeted that out, I was scared to death, but luckily it happened, and we can be happy now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting to me that you almost get to 100 days and you're talking about, look, we're going to have to push this thing back. And, is there going to be a season? Is there not going to be a season? And then suddenly they settle it. I wonder how important these issues really were the whole entire time.
I mean, they were legitimate. I think the tough part as fans is that I think a lot of people looked at it as, oh my God, these are all just, millionaires fighting. I don't know if we fully understand how much $1 billion is. That's what all the owners have. That's a lot more than the millions that the players are making. They obviously want to get a piece of the pie. Baseball revenues have skyrocketed since the last deal in 2016, and I think players wanted to be compensated fairly. The tough part about all of this, kind of like I mentioned with the 8-0 vote with the executive board there and the MLBPA, is that their whole goal was to represent the player that wasn't making their money, that wasn't making huge money. And when finally they got the minimum salary up above $700,000 a year, they got the pre-R bonus pool up there to I don't know what it ended up at. I think it was probably $50 million. They won. They finally won. So you were kind of surprised that they voted against it, but luckily we got baseball back.
So you look at the deal bonanza that begins right now. What do you think from a Red Sox perspective their most pressing need is?
I would say a big bat. When you lose Hunter Renfroe with that deal with the Brewers, and now Kyle Schwarber is a free agent. Kyle from Waltham. Heard you guys talking with Tim Kennedy earlier. That was nice. But no, I would love to have Schwarber back for many reasons. I mean, let's be honest. That playoff run was so much fun, and Kyle was a huge part of that. He was at the core of it. I know he tailed off a little bit in the ALCS, but that's a bat that you really need. I know it's going to be a little bit of a tough go for Alex Correa. He's going to have to move him around in the outfield and DH. Obviously, with JD back, makes it a little tricky. And Schwarber at first base was, oh my God, that anytime a ball went over there, I was cringing a little bit. But I would love to have him back. The Seiya Suzuki guy out of Japan. I think we all act like we know exactly everything about these foreign prospects when we really don't. I know he had 38 bombs last year. He's won some Gold Gloves over there. But I really don't know what the Red Sox would have in him, even though there's been some rumors they might be interested. So I would love Schwarber back. That would be the top guy on my list.
Now, you say it would be Schwab's, but when you look at the issue for this baseball team last year, wasn't it more about their pitching? And how confident do you feel about their rotation going into this season when really the only guy that you can kind of rely on right now, it seems to be Evaldi. We don't know what Tanner Houck is going to be. So would you be –
Well, and also Sale.
But I don't know about
Sale. No, that's fair. We don't know about Sale. I think it's fair to be a little bit cautiously pessimistic about Chris Sale, which kind of sucks to say, but he has to prove. I know when he came back in mid-August, there were some signs, but it wasn't the same guy, and so you're a little bit hesitant to be overly excited about that. Evaldi, is he going to repeat that? He's never had a season like that in his career, especially health-wise. Is he going to be able to do that another entire season? Wiggy, like you mentioned, Tanner Houck, there's a lot in the line for him. This is a huge season for him. I know he doesn't want to be a bullpen guy. He wants to be a starter, so he's going to have to prove it early and often to stay in the rotation that now has, Rich Hill, Michael Walker, you go down the list, guys that they've added, James Paxton. There's a lot of arms that if Houck's not dealing, he's probably going to get thrown back in the bullpen again, and he doesn't want that.
Steve, when it came to Jackie Bradley Jr., I asked Sam Kennedy about him because I think so many Red Sox fans who love JBJ forgot that we even got him back because they were so focused on this lockout. What do you think he can bring to this team that maybe they were missing last season? I mean, they did better than people thought they were going to do last season, but he's a great player.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing JBJ brings to the table is kind of been there, done that. The fact that he was on that 2018 team, that he's very respected here. He didn't have any bad blood with anybody. The only thing that people didn't like about Jackie was his batting average. So if we can get that up a little bit, that would be nice. But you're not bringing him back to hit. I mean, he's the best defensive center fielder I've ever seen on the Red Sox. Kike can now have a couple more days off, which is nice. There was a lot riding on Kike's back last season. Considering he did what he did was they really were playing with house money there because he's a second baseman playing center field at a Gold Glove level. So I think that's what it is. It's the leadership. a guy that can come in here and be like, hey, look, I have this big shiny ring from 4 years ago. That kind of just demands respect without saying anything. And he's just a good clubhouse guy. I think behind the scenes, people really like Jackie, and it'll be nice to have that familiar face in Fort Myers.
Stevie, a guy like Clayton Kershaw, would he be somebody that you would entertain? Because when you look at the rotation, it's still a lot of unknowns.
I don't think Heim would, just because of the guys he already added. You already have kind of enough starters, and it's not necessarily top-end rotation guys, but let's be honest, Clayton Kershaw is not that anymore, so I don't know if that would really be a necessity for the Red Sox. I know Kennedy was saying basically they need everything. They need arms, position players, bats, so I'm sure they're going to be searching for any kind of help they can possibly get, and I'm just like, last night we were ready for the action, right? Like, we were all ready for this free agent madness to go down, and I'm just refreshing the phone like we were doing the entire lockout and nothing was going down. So maybe that happens today, and maybe the Red Sox get a big addition, but I don't think it's going to be anyone like Kershaw.
Yeah, you felt like they would have had deals that were loaded and ready to go, even though they can't be talking to the player, but they could be. They were able to. Are they able to talk to the player's agent the last 3 or 4 months?
To my knowledge, no. But let's be honest.
When has it ever stopped them?
I know it's not like what is MLB going through everyone's phones like, oh, you can't be doing this. Like, you can text your wife, but not the agent. Yeah, I don't know.
Greg, what if they were meeting in the metaverse?
I'm sure there's some ways around it, especially in this day and age. They could probably meet in the metaverse, but I go back and forth on it because there's a really good chance that these guys were finding ways to communicate with him, whether it's like have your buddy reach out that's not affiliated with the Red Sox and then he gets back. I'm sure there was some of that going on, even though it's a big risk that you could potentially be losing draft picks and other stuff if that gets public. But
speaking of, is there a chance? Is there a chance that they over-delivered last year and were that close to another World Series, and therefore they look at it internally and say we don't need to do much?
Well, they don't really need to do much. I think both can be true. I think you can say that they potentially over-delivered, but also are still in a position to compete at the same level this year. The 12-team playoff, I still need to get used to that. I
think they made a mistake. I mean, you look at that game with the Yankees last year. That's arguably the game of the season, and that's not going to happen anymore. I think baseball made a mistake on that. I think
missing the wild card game is tough. Losing that is not the best thing, but I do like the idea of it being a bracket format now. You have the winner of the 6-3 goes on. You have the winner of the 4-5 goes on to play the 1. So I think that's cool. Bringing any kind of bracket setup, I'm going to get excited, especially in March. We got the tournament coming up here. But I do agree with you, Greg. The wild card game, I mean, that atmosphere was untouched. Like, that was, you can't beat that. And the winner go home. Going up to that, I hated the idea just because I was so worried about, we spend so much time the entire season, obsessing over this team. And then one night you have a pitcher that has a tough night and your season's over. But there was a beauty to that, and missing that is going to be a real thing.
So what become the expectations then, right? Because if you're
World Series, they're going to win it all, Wiggy. There you go.
Well,
they have to, though.
but you think about
they got to be they're the favorite in the East.
So we talk
right.
Are they your
They'd
favorite?
be up there. I don't think they're the Vegas favorite, but I would say the Rays are always up there, and then the Yankees are always the Vegas favorite because there's a lot of idiots that think they're actually going to win the whole thing.
So because you look at what was it, 6 outs or whatever they were from going to another World Series. So when we now look at this baseball team, what is the expectations coming into the season? Last year, for the first half of the season, they looked like they were the best team in baseball, and then things kind of went in the other direction.
Yeah, I think Alex Cora going into last year would probably say, and I think he actually did say this, hey, the expectation is to win the World Series. I don't know if he really meant it. Deep down, I think he was more just saying that to get the guys on board. This year, the expectation is to win the World Series. And if they don't, then that's a failure. And, considering what they've done recently, and I know 2018 now, I look at it like, we were at Baseball Tavern last night. It's 4 years ago now. It's been a little bit of time. But still, you have some guys that are still left over from that team and some core guys, the top of your rotation, the middle of your lineup. Those are the same dudes that were bopping 4 years ago and won a World Series, which should have been a sweep. So the expectations to win it all. The Red Sox have the pieces to do it, but I was excited for the free agent frenzy last night, and I ended up just kind of sitting here watching some random NBA games, and that was a little uneventful. So hopefully it happens today.
Steve, as a baseball guy, when you look at the other sports in Boston and you saying that if the expectation is to go all the way and win it all, do you think that fans in the city hold Henry and the ownership to a higher level when it comes to baseball when you look at Kraft or whoever else?
Yeah, especially considering that they have more wiggle room now. It's not a salary cap in baseball, but essentially all that, collective bargaining tax. I'm sure Wiggy loved reading up on that and getting to know what was going on. But no, now that you have more money to spend and you're a team that's typically in the top 3, 4, 5 in spending, that's where the expectation comes from, especially considering, you won a World Series 4 years ago. You have a team that surprised some folks last year, got 2 games away from the World Series. You're spending more than most teams are, even though Heim's come in and hasn't really committed big to a player yet. That's where the expectation comes from. So I think it's fair. And those guys know it. I'm sure having Sam on, he knows it. He would probably tell you the same thing. It's World Series or bust. And when you play the whole season with that mentality, it makes going to Fenway Park more entertaining every single time you're there.
So, Steve, you had mentioned the odds for the Red Sox. The Red Sox are actually 4th in the odds just to win the division. They're plus 550. So that's a number you would probably jump all over since you think this is more so like a really good push deep into the playoffs again for them?
100%. Stevie Betts over here. I would say take the Red Sox. Maybe not to win the World Series because actually you'd probably get great odds. Dude, take them to win the World Series. Take them to win it all. Take them to win the division and everything on top of that. Because
World Series odds right now, you're getting them at plus 2,200.
I was gonna say it would probably be plus 2,000. I don't do betting. I was betting a while ago and I couldn't lose more. I was one of the best losers at bets ever. I had to retire from it, so maybe I get back into it this season. But if you're a betting man, Red Sox 4th in the AL East. I mean, I would take that immediately. The tough part though is the Jays. I'd be stunned if they don't make the playoffs. Considering the additions they've made and that last year I was scared of them every single time they played them, I'd be stunned if they don't make it. So then it becomes a bunched up group. You got the Rays, Yankees, everybody there. Orioles will likely be the Orioles, so they're not going to be anything to be worried about. But yeah, I would take them at 4th in the AL East. Those are great odds.
And Steve, if you're feeling bad about your gambling, listen to the first 2 editions of Hammer the Spread with Shime because you got 1 right. So
I've gotten 2. All right.
Wait, out of how many though? Out of how many?
Out of 7.
Yeah,
that's
not bad.
great. Those are
No,
bad.
I know. I've been on a cold streak.
Steve,
Turning it around.
Steve, let me ask this because you said that when the expectations and you talked about the CBT and I started doing like some digging into it. Basically is like a salary cap, but they just won't say it. So how big of a year then is it for Chaim Bloom? Because if you're talking about spending money, and I know Greg, you were big on this last year where he didn't make any big moves, and he's not normally a guy that spends that type of money. Do you think that becomes a power struggle with John Henry? We know he's willing to throw money at guys. Where do you see him going?
No, that was Dombrowski's way of. That was Double D's way of doing it.
Double D, he would drop the dough. That's what Double D used to do.
They don't want. I'm assuming they don't want. That's not what Chaim Bloom does.
But Double D won you a World Series doing that. So does Chaim Bloom get into this where it's like, well, I don't generally do it that way, and you don't get these big free agent signings that you can now expect because of the CBT being higher?
I never knew Dave Dombrowski was Double D. That's what I'm going to call him now. I don't know how many times.
That's what they call him. That's what they call him over there. If you were an insider, you'd know that.
I know. I got the Odyssey Insider on my tag. I can't be saying that and not know Double D. But no, I honestly think I'm excited for the first player that Chaim really commits to because as of right now, the most he's spent on a player was Kike Hernandez, 2 years, $14 million. And that's, obviously a deal now considering what he did last year. So it gives you the flexibility now with a little more money to spend is a thing. But every team has that. Every team has the capability of not every team has the capability of signing Carlos Correa, but they have a better chance now of signing a big free agent and bringing that guy into the fold. So again, I'm going to need to see it to believe it, Wiggy. I feel like right now, if we predict X, Y, Z, it's kind of just a complete hunch, and you're just going off of nothing. So a lot of people want Red Sox Stats, which is my favorite follow on Twitter, is obsessed with the Carlos Correa idea. I'm like, I don't know. What, so you're dealing bogey? I don't love the idea of that. I'd rather have that left side of the infield for like the rest of my life. So we'll see. Carlos Correa is probably not going to end up here. And outside of that, the other big free agent names, you're kind of already set in terms of the positions that they take up.
Maybe you're moving Bogey to second base.
That's a big talks. That's the talks, Wiggy. Maybe that. Hey, if Bogey goes to second, Carlos Correa at short, Devers at third, Dahlbeck at first. That's the best offensive infield in the history of the game. So I'd love that. I just don't think that they're going to do it.
So in your mind, Heim, there's no chance he would ever trade Bogey.
I don't think there's no chance. I think he keeps everything on the table, which makes me nervous as a fan. It's anybody can go, anybody can come in, but that's where I'm stuck, the anybody can come in part, because I want to see who that first big name is. Until that happens, I'm not going to expect anything, but, if they ever dealt Bogey and brought Correa here, head would explode.
And I'd do you one better. I'd probably put Devers at second base and then put Bogey at third, because it's a little bit easier to play second base than it is third base, and we know Devers struggles.
Devers is the worst defensive third baseman on the planet, so that's not a terrible idea. I always anytime Wiggy has a baseball take, I know you guys might laugh a little bit, I always listen and I factor it in. I thought he had some really good takes last October, and Wiggy, you're back again. You're right. You're on opening day mode right now.
All-city catcher back in 1992, East Boston High School.
We're the Diamond Dogs.
What about his takes when it comes to sex in the metaverse? I mean, that's where he really.
That's where he falls off. That's where he falls off.
You should try it.
Where do you fall on that? The Red Sox need to change the music choices when it comes to getting fans excited to get back to Fenway.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Like, do you ever talk to your friends like, "Hey, I wasn't going to the games, but when they changed that third inning music, I started showing up."
Yep.
I don't know if that's gonna be the case.
He's a little off on that one.
No. That's why I'm going to the game.
That you're going to the game for the music. No, I heard you might be the new DJ, even if it's an intern. I'm sure you're fine money wise, so you can do it as an intern and you'll be good.
Yeah, I'll do it for free. I don't mind playing a nice little gig. Stevie, it's about, you're a diehard baseball fan, so
I love it. Yeah,
I'm a casual fan. So how do I get to the ballpark? I want to be entertained.
You take the T.
Well, you drive, you park. I mean, there's a lot of take a bike.
As a fan, I want to be entertained. I want that type of atmosphere that not only am I at a baseball game, but I feel like I'm at a party.
How could you not be entertained last season?
No, I was. I didn't say
it was
I
wildly
wasn't.
entertaining.
I have
You have
one
to
word.
build
It might
off
be
of
one or two words. AirPods. You can have whatever vibe in your
No,
ears.
stop it. You got to
You can
build
listen
off
to anything.
of it.
Hey, but here's the deal: that Wiggy, we got to get to a game together this year, because I feel like last year we talked about it late in the October, and I was like, it's too late now. We can actually plan, and I want to see what you're like at a ball game, because I feel like you probably have a couple of bevs and have a good time. You would seem like a good time at Fenway.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like you're the good time. You're acting like you want the good time brought to you. I feel like you need to bring the good time.
Oh, I'll bring the cushion. We'll have a great time.
I'm interested that you said number one priority is bat over arm, though. That's interesting to me.
I just don't. I more mean the more
Basically,
realistic
you have
option.
You have Evaldi. That's it.
That's it.
I mean, that's it.
Well, this is the rotation that they've put in front of us is a let's hope it works rotation. I'm more saying realistically, I don't think they're going to add a big arm. Do they need it? Yeah, a lot of teams need it. But I think they would rather replace Renfroe and potentially Schwarber if you lose both of them. That lineup, I mean, the Red Sox lineup is something they never mess with. They always make sure they have one of the best lineups in baseball, and you're probably going to need another big bat to keep it at that status.
Don't you have JD, though?
You got JD, you got Devers, you got Bogarts, but Renfroe and Schwarber were huge for you in the last couple months.
And Whitlock ends up back in the bullpen?
I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to mess with Whitlock. I mean, that's a weapon that not a lot of teams have, and the second you might make him a starter, you could start getting into Daniel Bard territory. Don't want to mess with that.
Yeah. All right, Stevie P.
We're back. Baseball's back. This is awesome.
Baseball's back.
Let's get you back in a Reese's costume.
Yeah, I don't know if that's retired or not. Maybe that's just a postseason thing. We'll see. But I don't know. Maybe Snickers costume.
What's the update on the Red Sox podcast?
Yes, so we're all ready to go. We are ready to launch this thing, and I'm so excited now because there was a chance there we were going to have like a 100-game season. We finally saved 162, and we're going to be launching that soon. A lot of details coming up, but we're likely going to be in spring training next week, which is nuts. Likely going to be in Fort Myers, and very excited for that to become a public thing.